Okay, I'll just give it a couple of minutes before I actually start, and okay, so this is the last lecture where there's new material. Next week we'll be looking at the exam, and probably won't be very long, but I'll run through some of the things you might expect to see and do in the exam during next week's lecture. So I don't know how you found the material for this week. It's probably the most complex of the materials that we've dealt with in some ways. It's not technically complex, but it is organisationally complex and a bit hard to understand, particularly the bit about ITIL, I think. But I'll just spend a couple of minutes going through some of the major points there, and the rest I'll leave to the lecture notes. One of the things that has historically been a real problem for operational activities, they're the ones that are the standard day-to-day activities of an IT department, is providing a consistent service to the clients. Now, we like to complain about RMIT ITS, and you know, that's fairly typical. The sort of problems that RMIT ITS has from time to time in providing a good seamless service to its clients. You know, that's typical of IT departments. And having worked as a support person in an IT department in a previous life, I know it is quite a bit of a struggle to get a consistent and good quality service to all your clients. It's really hard. And so ITIL is an attempt to provide a framework whereby organisations can do better in providing their service to their clients. Now, there's a little video clip in the lecture notes, which I think really shows this up quite well, about a menu in a restaurant, and where the various parts of the meal arrive in the order that best suits the kitchen and not the client. So they get all their meal in bits and pieces, and that's not how restaurants are supposed to work. The client wants the meal presented complete, ready to eat, not in bits and pieces. Now, typically IT departments have done the bits and pieces bit. You get somebody who, you know, you put in a log a job, say something's not working. Somebody appears to look at it, mumbles something under their breath and disappears, and then somebody else appears and they mumble something under their breath and disappear again. This really does not provide a good experience for the client at all. The problem as far as the IT persons comes, they think, you know, first the desktop support person appears, discovers it's actually a communications problem. So that person disappears and reassigns the job to a communications person. Communication person arrives and forms the opinion that it's actually the operating system that's not working. The network itself is working, but there's something in the operating system that isn't working. And so they go back again. And so there's this stream of people coming and going. And that's not a good look at all. So ITIL is an attempt to provide a framework for service providers so that you know, they provide everything in a proper way, and everything's fine. So that's what ITIL is aiming to do, and there are various ways in which it goes about it, and that's what the notes are partly about. Now, the main thing in ITIL, as far as my lecture notes are concerned, is that I don't say too much about it, but what I do is refer you to some reference material, which is fairly lengthy and not all that easy to understand in first look, but it is the best material I could find, and I didn't think I should rewrite it all just because there were materials. So make sure you actually read all the links. And not that I expect you, after this course is over, to actually remember too much about what ITIL is and how it works, but would be really nice if when you go to when you start work and somebody talks about ITIL, you don't ask, what's ITIL? Because you could look a complete idiot. If this achieves nothing other than the fact that you know it's something to do with keeping operations working so that it satisfies the client, then that's fine. That's what I want you to know. The other part of the lecture is about change management and project management. Now, operations people, whom I've just been talking about, try to keep everything the same. They don't like changes. They just want things to run along smoothly, and everybody's happy and everything works nicely, and no changes, thank you. Now, projects, by their very nature, are to do with change. So typically, project managers and operations managers don't get on too well. I was the project manager. I didn't get on with operations people. They weren't my favourite people at all. Until my last project, when I was helped out by some operations people in a crisis we had. I got to like operations people. I started to understand them. It took me most of my career to work that out, which is, perhaps I was just a slow learner. I hope you guys do better than that. Anyway, project management is to do with change. Making anything that it changes anything should be managed as a project. And there are several ways of managing projects, several methodologies or frameworks or whatever. There's the major one is the Project Management Body of Knowledge, PMBOK, usually called PMBOK. And that comes from an organisation called the Project Management Institute, which is based in the United States. It really is a global organisation, has chapters in most big cities of the world, not so much in the old Eastern Bloc, Russia and what have you, but certainly in Western Europe and in South America, North America, Australia, large parts of Asia. Not sure about mainland China, but certainly in Hong Kong, Singapore, and so on. There are chapters of the Project Management Institute. And their framework is called PMBOK. I'm not going to talk about it too much, but if you're in the fourth year course and you do in the last year you do the business design project course, you'll find out all about PMBOK then. And so that's one methodology. There's another one called PRINCE2, which comes from the United Kingdom. PRINCE2 is mainly for IT, PMBOK's for all sorts of projects, construction, engineering, building aircraft, all those sorts of things. Whereas PRINCE2 is mainly aimed at IT, information technology projects. And then they're the old kids on the block, or the old men on the block. The new kids on the block are agile methodologies. The problem with Prince2 and PMBOK was that you did all the planning up the front, and then once you've done all your planning, you then did your execution or ran the project. And that's good for some projects. If you're building a building, it certainly helps if you know what you're doing before you start. But with IT and design projects, that doesn't work too well, because usually people change their minds as they go along. And so you'll find that by the time you finish the project, the requirements have changed and the project isn't any good because everything's changed. Agile methodologies are designed to make it a bit easier to change things on the run and keep up to date, particularly if the project goes on for a little while. And also if the client doesn't actually know what they want, which is not uncommon in IT projects. The client really doesn't have a clear idea what they want. And with the traditional methodologies, you spend a lot of time trying to get them to decide what they want. Usually what they think they want when they start is not what they really wanted. And so you spend a lot of time building the application, and then they say, actually, that's not what I wanted. And by that time, you've spent all the money, and that's the end of that. Whereas with Agile, you can build a quick prototype and say, is that what you want? Is that what it looks like? And they say, no, actually, I wanted something else. And so you can build another prototype. They say, yes, that's good. And then you can go and build the real thing. And that's basically how Agile works. Very good for smallish projects. Very big infrastructure projects may not be so good for. But certainly for the software development and design, it's really good. So architects can use Agile if they're sitting with their client, working out what sort of house they want. They typically do this. They do a first draft and say, well, how do you like this? And they can put it up in their 3D CAD thing, and then they can do a walkthrough with virtual reality. And the client can walk through the house and say, it's good, but I don't like the way the bathroom works. And so the architect can then change it. And so design projects, engineering, design, all that sort of thing really work well with Agile. But once you start building a building, you can't really change your mind too often because it gets really expensive. You can imagine, you get halfway up the building and the client says, actually, I wanted it smaller than that. So you rip it all down and build it again. That sort of doesn't work. So Agile doesn't really work for construction once you start building something. Okay, so let's move on to have a look at the class activity for today. I'm putting you that this is probably one of the harder activities I've given you, because I'm trying to put you in a situation you've almost certainly not been in. That is being a CIO or a senior person within an IT department, trying to set up infrastructure. Now, so I'm pulling you out of your comfort zone a bit here. So you're imagining that you're in a large company. It's got more than 2,000 employees, and they spread around the globe. So they're in Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, Thailand, and China. And you've got to set up an infrastructure that allows this company to work. So they've got web servers, and they've got data centers, and they've got end users, desktop and mobile. That end users are the people working for them. That's the 2,000 employees, not the company's clients, but the IT department's clients, which are actually employees in the company. So that's the situation. And what you have to do is to work out how you're going to maximize effectiveness and minimize costs in the network infrastructure, in the server infrastructure in their data centers and on their desktops and in mobile. So how do you maximise effectiveness, and minimise cost. Now, if you remember that in the lecture notes, I keep on banging on about this, that companies in their IT departments, this is what they're trying to do. They're trying to maximise effectiveness and minimise costs. And the budgeting people are always trying to save money, particularly on IT. The whole time, no matter how good you do, they're always wanting to save money. So CIOs are always trying to find the next best way of saving money. So that's the first part. The second part is, what issues would you face in managing the infrastructure of this company? So, you know, what are the things that are going to hurt you? What's going to go wrong? What's going to be the nasty things that happen? And what might you do to address these things and make them hurt a little less? So when you're working in groups, it'd be really good if the people who are designing the infrastructure talk to the people who are doing the second bit. You're going to really have to integrate your answer here so that you're actually talking about the same company, not each person talking about a separate company, as sometimes I see. Most of you groups are pretty good at getting things integrated, I have to say, but not all of you are. Some of you, I think, leave things to the last minute, and so each person does their own thing. That won't work in this particular exercise. I think that's the end of it. Yeah. So good luck with that. That's the last class activity for the semester. There isn't one next week. Excuse me. That's the last one. And I better say something about how my marking's going, seeing I'm so far behind in it. I think I've got up to, I think I did Quebec last night in the assignment. So when I've finished them all, I'll put the marks up into Blackboard, but you'll find in your group business report group folder, there's a spreadsheet. And in the spreadsheet is the breakdown of how I've marked your work.
You already put it up?
If I've marked you, it's there.
Oh.
So if you're from Alpha to Quebec, I think I got to Quebec, it'll be there. If you're Quebec to whiskey, Sierra to whiskey, Romeo to whiskey, I haven't got to you yet. That's my job for this afternoon if nobody interrupts me. I hope to get them finished this afternoon, but you know, my life seems to be running in interruptions. I worked at home yesterday. I had a doctor's appointment in the morning, and I thought by the time I get to work, it'll be half the day. So I worked at home, and I got a lot done. So that was nice. But hopefully I'll get to whiskey today. If not, it'll be early tomorrow. And then after that, I'll start on all the class activities I haven't marked yet. And then after that, I'll do the lab notes, week 8. So, of course, week 9, 10 and 11, there are no lab notes for week 9. 10, 11, sorry, 9, that's right, 9, 10 and 11, there's no lab notes. Week 8, there is, and that's the one I'll be marking. And if I have notes before that you are late in having, and I haven't marked them, even if you've sent me an email already, please send me another one so I'll look at it. But I probably will, when I finished everything, go back and have a look at people who didn't have any marks anyway. But that will be well into week 13 by the time I get to that. So also, I will be the labs next week is a catch up. There's no new work. So if you've finished week 11 and been marked off for that, then there's no need to come. in week 12. But I will be also running catch-up labs on Monday at the normal lab times, which is 10:30, 1:30 and 3:30. If you have any work you need to catch up on or need any help for there, then pop in at that time. I don't promise to be there the whole of the time. I will pop in, I'll come in at the beginning, so at 10:30, 1:30 and 3:30 I'll be there. And then I'll pop in, say, every 20 minutes or something after that if, you know, if I've dealt with everybody who needs help. So if I'm not there, just wait a little while and I'll pop in and give you any help you need and mark anything that needs marking. So that'll be week 13. And then on the Thursday, of course, there's the exam. Or, sorry, the end of semester test. Mustn't call it an exam. The end of semester test. Now that can only be done by turning up at the room that's in the meeting invitation I sent you. No, it's not in this room. No, it's if you look in your Google Calendar, you'll find the room in the meeting invitation. But I'll send it around anyway by email. It's in Building 80, and so you need to come because there's a password which you won't know until you're in the room. And so you need to bring a laptop. I don't think a tablet's going to cut it, but you know. If it depends what sort of risk you want to take. I'd bring a laptop if I were you, and we'll run the exam.
So it's open book.
Sorry?
Open book.
It's sort of open book, yes. Yeah, it's an open book exam, but you're under time pressure. So you've got basically 2 minutes a question.
Wait, is it multiple choice question?
It's not. Well, it's all what we call objective. You know, so some of them are multiple choice, some are matching, some are multiple correct answers. It's like the ones you did every week.
Like the quiz?
Yeah, it's like the quiz, yes. Except it's longer. There's 60 questions. Okay, in 2 hours. So that's 2 minutes a question. Most people finish long before the 2 hours, by the way. Some questions will take you longer than others. But the thing about multiple with these objective questions is they are hard to know how you're going, because you know you don't know what the right answers are until the end, and so generally people don't do as well as they think they're doing. So be careful with them. Some of them are a little bit tricky. Well, they read tricky in the sense that they actually require you to read the question, and be careful how you read the question. Otherwise, you know, you're going to answer it wrong. So 2 minutes a question on average. It is open book in the sense that you can, you know, use Google and what have you, but don't rely on that. What I will be doing though is turning our website off, so you can't actually look at the lecture notes. You can use Google, but you can't actually look at the lecture notes. So I'll be turning permissions on the website off for the exam. No, you can't look at the lecture notes, but you can use Google. All right?
You can store the web page.
I'm sorry?
You can download the page.
Oh, if you can do that, yes.
But then what kind of a sort of question are we getting? Like the lecture is like so long, I just don't know where to start, what to revise.
That's correct. Yes, that's one of the things about exams. I will say something as much as I can about it without giving the show away next week. But you can be sure it covers just about everything. All right, but more on that next week. Yeah, so it's fun. What I did last semester was the first time I ran this sort of test, and what I did was to look at the spread of marks for the previous tests, which had been an exam at the showgrounds, like the normal ones. And then I looked at the spread from my one, and then I adjusted the marks so the spread was the same. The pass was actually 42 out of 100 last time. 42% was the pass mark last semester. So I expect it'll be pretty much the same. So I have this little tricky spreadsheet that changes the marks from 42 becomes 50%, or 15 out of 30. Okay, so it's worth 30%. So I can't remember how many marks it's actually out of 200 and something, but turn that to a percentage. 42% becomes 50%, and then the marks are scaled either way. This is what maths does for you. Okay, so that was last semester. I guess it'll be similar. So don't get too excited. Oh, I can only get 40%, 42% and still pass, because you might end up with 28%. So there's a good reason why it was 42%, because these sort of exams are quite hard. They're much harder than a written exam.
I thought it would be easier.
But it has a big advantage. It's much quicker to mark.
That's an advantage for you.
Oh, of course it's an advantage for me. It also allows me to cover more of the course. So that's an advantage for me too. No advantages for you, except that it's over in week 13 instead of, and you don't have to troop out to the showgrounds to do it. Okay, so have fun. And anyway, I'll see you all next week. Look after yourselves. Don't get my cold. Yes, a question, yes.
That was one, the lecture quiz. I think it's week 8.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's the week when you got sick and done the quiz. It said that I was late.
Oh, yes. That got mucked up. No, what I have to do is to go through everybody's marks and put them in manually.
But mine doesn't.
Yeah, I know, they don't show up. But I can see them. I can see them. And I need to go in and change them all. And I just haven't had time to do it. So you won't lose the marks. It's just Blackboard had a little something was set wrong and Blackboard went silly. So
the deadline was like last year.
Yeah. No, you won't lose the marks for week 8. It's just that I tried to persuade Blackboard to actually, because the marks are sitting there, to actually show them. It wasn't going to do it, so I'm going to have to go through everybody's marks and put them in manually. So that's going to take me some time, and I thought it much better if I spend my time getting the assignments marked rather than doing that job. But that job will be done. It's just it won't be in the next couple of days. I want to get the assignments marked first. Okay, so see you all next week and in the exam in week 13. Remember, you have to come to the exam. You can't do it from home because there's a password that you have.
If like somehow our laptop crash, will we get to do it? I have to add my laptop.
I will be there to help you.
6 years old already, and it's crashed one time when I do the quiz.
Yeah, now I can reset things, but you have to start from the beginning again. So try and persuade your laptop not to crash.
I've tried, but
okay.
There was one time doing the quiz and it just like stopped.
Yes. It's some of those old apples are like that, particularly if you keep updating the operating system. They get slower and slower and slower. I had to buy a new one because of that. My old one's acting as a server sitting on my desk at home.
CD thing.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's like the one that's sitting on my desk at home. I'm using it as a server running Linux. Anyway, I'll see you all later. Bye.